What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Real Fanatics. I'm your host, Farron Coleman, here with my man Vito once again. And we're coming to you with a somewhat late review of the remainder of the season of The Acolyte. I know we reviewed episodes 1 through 3 already on this channel. So I wanted to conclude that and actually give you our thoughts on the remainder of the season, if you could call it that. If you could call it that. No spoiler alert on how I feel about this show. I'll give you a few quick thoughts, and then I'll let Vito go ahead and give some of his, overall thoughts on how the show went. Um, I think this show kind of hurts my heart a little bit. Like this concept, the concept of this show, I thought had a lot of promise. You're telling a story from the perspective of the Sith, giving audiences really like a new look at Star Wars. Honestly, we've never really seen a true story from the Sith's perspective. You can count the prequels if you want to, but that story didn't really turn into a Sith story until the third movie. That was a Jedi story. Like this was the first supposed to be true story giving you Star Wars from the perspective of the Sith. And I felt that there were a lot of missed opportunities in telling that story. I thought the characters were not very well fleshed out and the writing was never good throughout the show at any point. And I think the two main characters could have been handled a lot better. I think the writing, particularly with them two, was particularly bad. I thought May was one of the most compelling characters in the show, and her story arc was wasted. And by the end of the show, she was ruined. And Osha showed a lot of promise as well, but the way she started the show, I thought she was very boring. Got more interesting as the show progressed, but I think the most interesting character, honestly, in the whole show was the Sith that was training both Osha and May. Forgetting the character's name, not right now off the
Chimere
top of my
or
head.
Chimere, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. I think he was. Honestly, I think the show would have been better if the story revolved around him, just based on what I saw. But I also think you could have made a more compelling story with Osha and May than the one that we got. I'm really hoping that Star Wars or Disney, rather, at some point, kind of comes to terms with the fact that their writing for Star Wars in general, not just in this show, but across every Star Wars property they've put out, has not been good. Starting with the films they put out, then moving on into Boba Fett, then moving on into Obi-Wan. Sure, Mandalorian was good. I personally really liked Ahsoka, but that's two out of however many Star Wars properties you put out that have actually been decent, and the rest of them, the writing has been terrible. And I really hope that at some point Disney comes to terms with the fact that you are ruining one of the most popular and beloved franchises in all of pop culture. And if you continue on this path, you're going to find Star Wars not being as lucrative as it could be because you're not putting out quality content. So I'm gonna get off my soapbox real quick because I can keep ranting if I want to. I'm gonna let Vito go ahead and give some of his thoughts.
Yeah, I got a few disagreements in there. I'm gonna start with the shows, and they have been very lacking as far as writing and storytelling wise. If you know how I feel about the Star Wars universe, I hate the Skywalker family, and that seems like a safe place for them, for Disney. Lucasfilms, period. That seems like a very safe place for them to go. We keep going back there. So to get the Acolyte, it was good to get a break from the Skywalkers, you know, and everything surrounding them. I don't think all of it's been terrible. I do still think it's been weak. I don't think they've had anything that was very good outside of the Mandalorian. Um, Again, I do think Ahsoka was written very well. Again, there were still certain things where it was felt like, okay, well, are we going to finish telling the story about this person? Are we going to finish telling the story about this thing? Um, because we're left to think, okay, will this happen in season two? We really don't know if we're going to get a season two because all of these shows they're putting out is being released as sort of mini series. Um, as far as Acolyte, Osha was very boring from the beginning of the show. Very boring. I'm gonna say she didn't get interesting till the last episode. To be honest
Really?
with you,
Yeah.
and it's pretty much the end of the episode. Um, Did you have the? You were saying the other main character was her soul.
Well, I mean, the main characters are Osha and May, but like
Oh,
I
okay, I
was
got you.
saying that Tamir was the only other character that I found interesting outside of May,
Okay,
and May was only interesting to me for the beginning part of the show until
yeah.
bad writing turned her
Okay,
into
so
like and she stopped
so
becoming a character that I cared about.
and we talked about it. You know, we were like, okay, we're gonna hate if uh May comes around and she turns good and something like this. And that didn't really happen. She was kind of forced. May was just going to dip, which I would have been fine with. And it kind of took a opposite turn to it, where
Hmm.
spoiler alert. I don't know. I think it's been out long enough,
It's
and
been out long
I haven't
enough,
said it
and
yet. I
if you
haven't
haven't
said
seen the
anything
show,
wrong
I don't
yet.
think you're
So
going to at this point,
spoiler
based on
alert.
how the
Spoiler
reviews have
alert.
been.
Spoiler
So,
alert. Osha goes over to train by Chimera, to get what she wants. And again, and to their credit, okay, or you can hit this a few different ways because did you say it was Plagius that was at the cave?
yeah, that was the I don't know if it's I'm pretty sure it's been confirmed that that was
Okay,
Darth Plagueis in the
so
cave in
the,
on the planet with Kamir.
so the reason we didn't see enough him or Plagius, this is what I'm going with, is because they're Sith. They're Sith. They're supposed to be Sith, and everybody they're trained is supposed to be the Acolyte. All right. So the story should have been more focused on May, and it wasn't. It was focused on Baker. I mean, it could have been called anything else because she wasn't the Acolyte until the end of the show, where she
Hmm.
does exactly what Chimera wanted May to do the entire time: kill without a weapon. Also with no explanation was crazy, very crazy. So when you don't
Yeah,
know
she just
what a
kind of
Sith
spawned
is,
the ability to force choke.
yeah, when you don't know what the Sith is, and I mean, and it makes sense because the dark side is so strong and powerful. When you do use your Jedi abilities, it does spawn different
Hmm.
different things, and I do believe that May had that darkness in her. So by her not being able to use those powers like that, it's kind of it's kind of pushing back on the whole idea that she was really angry at them for this reason. But everything she was doing showed an extreme hatred for the Jedi, and not
Yeah.
just the Jedi, but those particular Jedi that were on her planet. So
Hmm.
she wasn't able to do any of that, with that. But soon as May found or Osha found out, she's like, "Yo, I'm holding you." Choke. She kills my
Hmm.
man's like that.
Yeah.
So I think they did do May a big disservice because it should have been more centered around her. Again, we knew that we knew that they had done something wrong. But until episode, was it 3 or 4 where they did the 7 when they do the
Seven when they
Jedi
actually
portion,
revealed
we
exactly
don't
what they did.
we
Yeah.
don't even know what the Jedi did to make her this angry. Okay, we know at the beginning of the season that she starts a fire and
Hmm.
somehow everybody dies. Everyone in their covenant dies. We know that, but again, we're like, this small fire did this and killed everybody, and she never explains what happened either. And again, none of this happens until episode 7. So she's trying to get Osha to come over to her side. Hey, come with me, come with me,
Without
come with
really
me,
telling her what happened.
without telling her what happened. And again, when you see episode 7 and it goes into the backstory about how this all began, how this all started, and you're like, shit, she should hate the Jedi. That
Hmm.
darkness that's built up around her, she should have been Anakin Skywalker. you know, she should
Essentially, like that same
she
a
should have
similar story
been
arc. Yeah.
she should have been she should have been a strong and powerful Sith at that point.
Hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
and they do because we do understand that by the end, again, spoiler, that they're not twins. They're legitimately one person that's
I
been
have some
split
thoughts
by the
on that
Force.
too when you're done because
And
that made no sense.
they don't explain it. Like they
They
kind of
operate as
vague,
twins the entire
yeah,
show.
they vaguely explain it. And again, if they're one person split in two, then all the shit that Osha's doing. I mean, or May did. You would think that she was the bad twin,
Hmm.
but she's not able to use these dark powers. But as soon as Osha, like May, seen her mother get killed by Saul,
And yet
nothing
OSHA can tap into these dark side abilities
immediately.
immediately.
And again,
And yeah,
and again,
there's a lot that it makes no
well,
sense with
I'm
them
not
being
gonna
the
say
same
it
person.
doesn't make sense because again, the way the dark side works is really
Yeah. It
uh,
doesn't
I,
make sense for how they portrayed it in the show. Like the
it
concept
doesn't.
in and of itself
Be-
doesn't like it's not there's nothing wrong with the concept itself,
yeah,
right? Because we understand because from the prequels, we understand that like the Force can create life, and that is a thing with Darth Plagueis. He learned to create life using the Force, so that is a concept that's been in Star Wars already. That's not new. The problem I have with this concept, the way they're trying to portray it and introduce it in this show, is if Osha and May are indeed the exact same person just split into two different bodies. At no point did the show do anything that
to
indicated that or
separate
hinted
that.
that to the audience.
Yeah.
Like they'd never shared a consciousness, they didn't share memories. When one got hurt, it wasn't like the other one got hurt. Like there was nothing plot wise to
And
indicate to the
that's
audience
why I
they're the
said the
same person.
whole good bad twin thing. Because
They
you,
literally just operated as two different people,
yeah,
and then at the end
because
they're like, "Oh no, they're the same person." Like, no,
usually when
they've
you
been
split
operating as two separate individuals this
when you
entire show.
split consciousness like that, usually you have somebody they're saying, okay, this is the good one, this is the bad one. But
Hmm.
again, May was a little evil shit from the time she was little.
Yeah, like they were never aligned in their thought process at
Yeah,
any point. For them to be the exact same person, like you want me to believe that you force created one entity and split it into two different bodies, but they operate completely different. Like they're polar opposites of each
and
other.
what was the reason? You know,
Yeah, like
they she said she said she did it, but or so they however they explained it. It was again, what was the reason for two of them instead of one?
mm-hmm.
And you only need one to lead the covenant. And this again, this is the only reason I'm saying I don't have a I do have a slight problem with how fast Osha was able to tap into the dark side, but just a
Given
little.
how long May was training, and we
Yeah,
didn't see
and
that
and
from her,
and, and
yes.
everything that
Especially if they're the
May
same person now. Like, come on now.
everything that May seen should have made her that angry to understand. The only reason I
Yes.
didn't have that much of a problem with it, which is kind of making me walk it back sometimes, is because of the sequel movies. What was it in 7 or 8 where they kidnapped where Kylo Ren and the Knights of Ren kidnapped Chewie, and Rey is holding on to the transporter, and again this goes back to the bad writing, okay,
Mm-hmm.
or the I don't want to say just totally bad because I think if context is added to some of these parts in a lot of these, then it's
But it
better.
wasn't.
But yeah,
So it's bad
but it's
writing.
not,
Yeah.
and you shouldn't have to add things after the fact to make the movie good. That's how I feel
Yeah.
about Justice League movie. But
Fair point.
she sparks out lightning out of her hands and she destroys the transporter,
Mm-hmm.
and now she thinks she's killed Chewie. Now, why did she force lightning instead of pulling it back? Because I don't think she was told that she was Sidious's granddaughter yet. I don't believe. I can't
Mm-mm.
recall. But we knew
No,
she
at this
had.
point, she didn't know. I don't. I think that was. I want to say that was the
This
Last
that was
Jedi,
in the
but
movie.
those
Yeah.
films, I've like tried to push them out of my memory, so I
So
don't
well,
100%
I've
know.
been playing the Skywalker saga, so
So I don't know why you're putting
the
yourself through
Lego
that.
Skywalker game. So
Oh, there you go. Okay,
yeah.
never mind.
So
I'm thinking.
yeah,
I'm like, you watched that again?
yeah. I'm going to watch it again. I'm going to watch all of them again in order just from playing the
Okay.
game, the Lego game.
Okay.
But yeah. So but it jogged that memory, and it's like, okay,
Yeah.
well, why? Again,
Mm-hmm.
because we know that the force is one. It's really not a light side, dark side. It's the force, and it's just different ends of the force. So you can
Yeah.
tap into either side.
Mm-hmm.
But again, we know that there's ways that you tap into that side.
Hmm.
Darkness, anger, fear.
Yeah.
It's a lot of them. And again, that's just me pointing towards the lack of good writing, and how. And I got on this whole tangent to talk about how her force choking Saul, I just out of nowhere. Like, I understand how it could be
She
done,
like spawned that
but at
ability
the
out of
same
nowhere.
time, May should have something.
I'm saying if
I think,
OSHA can do that within a few minutes of being a Sith,
yeah.
May should have been
I,
like laying waste to
I
people.
think I think
You know
May
what I'm
should have
saying?
been. I think they should have at least had her attempt to do it and maybe not be able to be successful in it,
Hmm.
or force lightning or something. But also at the same time, I don't think it's just that easy to force choke another force
A
user like
skill,
that.
not even just a Force user, a Jedi Master,
Yeah, a skill,
a skilled Jedi Master.
and I'm gonna get off the whole force part. I do want to talk about what I did like about the show. Um, I like that they killed everybody that went to that planet with them.
Those
Again,
Jedi did suck, so I didn't
spoiler
miss
alert, they
them.
did. And again, Sith are supposed to be stronger. They try and say, because it's only two of them or it's only one of them, the fewer Sith, the stronger they
The
are.
rule of two, yeah,
The rule of two, but we know it's not that much of a fact. We seen Mace Windu single handedly take down Darth Sidious. The only reason he died is because Anakin interfered and cut his arm off.
yeah.
Um, we see we see, and again, there's only there's only supposed to be two Sith, but there's always other dark side Force users. Okay,
Yeah.
we'll say that. But either way, we've seen Jedi go toe to toe with dark side users. You know, 1-on-1, 2-on-1. I'm trying to think back to the Clone Wars, and I don't think there was ever a 3-on-1 fight. I could be wrong. I don't recall. Maybe Asajj, Anakin, Ahsoka, and maybe Obi-Wan, or maybe one of the. I don't think, but it was six of them. Okay, 6 or 7 of them, and he just. So again, we're supposed to be at the height of the Jedi. The height of the Jedi
Hmm.
Council, the height of power within the Jedi, and did they just send like the weakest motherfuckers that they that they had at the
Kind
time?
of did though. Like, I mean, I don't. I really saw Soul. You had Soul, and you had his two apprentices. Is what I'm gonna just call them. The
No, no,
99 cent
no. He
Killmonger,
he
and
had a
then
he had a
I'm saying as far
knight.
as central character, he
No,
had
no,
like other
essential.
people
Oh
with him. But
boy,
as far
oh
as like,
boy was a knight, so he wasn't an apprentice
yeah,
anymore. So I'm
okay, he
I'm
was a knight.
fine
Yes,
with those two not being as strong. I was fine with that. That made sense.
you
But
saying the rest of the group how they
and you
get kicked up
seen
out of there that
the
quick?
the apprentice was the strongest one. She
The
put up the
apprentice held her own the
she put up
longest
the
out of
most of
everybody.
the
Yeah,
fight between
yeah,
them two,
yeah,
and it
yeah.
just
No, I'm with you. The reason why I was okay with that is because I think that's the best scene in the whole show, like bar none. I think that fight scene
yeah.
is the best scene in the entire show. So I was just glad that that show was finally giving me something quality. That I was like, you know what, I'm not even gonna nitpick at this because the rest of this show has not been very strong. So the fact that at least you're getting the fight scenes right and the lightsabers fight right, I can live with that. This is something I could come revisit as a Star Wars fan,
Okay.
knowing that there's good lightsaber fights in the show. These are scenes I can come back and revisit. So I was okay with that. Even though I agree with you, logic wise, it doesn't make sense
Yeah.
that the Padawan or the apprentice was the one that put up most of the fight against a Sith Lord when he just laid waste to the rest of the Jedi that
Hmm.
were there. But
Easily.
easily, like he didn't break a sweat. Like he was like just killing left and right, like it was nothing. Like they were no match for him essentially. But the reason why I was more okay with that scene, despite some of the illogical things, is like I said, the show was never written well from start to finish. So why would I expect the fight scenes to be any different? You know what I'm saying? Like the show hasn't been written well up to this point. I'm just glad that at least you're giving me something redeemable that I can hang my hat on this show and say, okay, at least you got this right. And but outside of that, I mean, there's so much in this show that I felt like just missed the mark.
and
as
could have been
far
great.
as what it
Could
could
have been
have
so
been.
great.
What it could have been. And it's not even just what it could have been. It's the fact that it's like not even like decent or okay. Like this is objectively kind of a bad show when you just look at it from start to finish. Like episode 1 through 8, this is
I
not a well made
and
show,
I really
and
want
it could
to
have
I
been
really
so
want to
much better based on
disagree
the
with you,
concept.
but I can't.
Yeah,
From
it's
the
not a good show.
from the
It's just
beginning of
not.
the show where um
There's
she's
good
taken into
moments,
custody,
but
from the
yeah,
beginning of it, and Soul never goes, you know, when he finds out, he never, no one
hmm
ever goes, she did have a twin. Like
yeah,
it's shit's happening by the time
yeah,
they know that
hmm
there's another person at this point.
yeah.
And me and you talked about this off camera, how Carrie Ann Moss's character was just a waste of a character for the show.
She was, she
Um,
was. For who you casted, yeah, I would have liked to see her character a little bit more. You kind of got her up out of there in the first scene,
Even the way that she died was kind of like she should have been
especially
able
knowing what
to.
we know now. Like May isn't even that powerful.
She should have been able to stop. Like she should have,
Yeah,
because she grabbed the knives that was going towards him. She could have
hmm
something.
yeah.
We know.
She shouldn't have been killed that easy.
Yeah, again, like I said, I really want to disagree with you, but I want to disagree with you because again, I'm
I
going to
wanted to
watch
like this
all of them,
show.
but
I wanted to like this
it
show.
is it's just written bad.
Yeah,
From the time that May kills what was Carrie? I forgot her character's name.
I'm gonna just call her the Jedi Trinity. That's what she is in my head. I don't remember her
So from the
character's
time
name.
she kills her to the time May escapes her prison transport ship,
Hmm
because why wouldn't they grab her too? To the time that
Well, I think at this point they believe May is dead,
well, no, no, no,
according
I
to.
mean the other prisoners.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes.
Um, to the time they go to get Tabor, go to watch over his thing.
Hmm
It's just not written well,
It's
because
not.
he would, even his reasoning for doing what, like, again, we seen that he let her kill him. He let that happen, or did he killed
Hmm
himself, right?
He killed himself. I
He
was like,
drank the
he
poison.
didn't even let her
Yeah,
kill him.
so
Like he did it himself.
we she comes, he does that, and we're like, okay.
It makes a
And
little more sense when you understand what they did,
it
but
makes a little more sense, but to be honest, Soul did most of
yeah, I was like,
it.
you're not even really the most guilty party here.
Yeah,
Soul should be the one killing
Soul
himself. If
was the
anyone's just
most
ravished
guilty
with guilt,
party.
it should be him. Yes.
And then they did not again, a lot of again, a lot of the problems that we had with the show were kind of and I'm not, when I say solved, I'm just say answered. They were
Hmm
answered in the last few episodes, but that
They
spawned
weren't
more
answered well.
questions.
Yeah, it
It
spawned more
spawned more
questions.
questions
They weren't answered
because
well.
we seen the entire covenant, the entire covenant use their powers to take over the Wookiee. And when Jedi Trinity used her Jedi powers to break him out of it, the covenant that, I'm sorry, it was like maybe 12, 13, 14 members of the covenant using their powers in sync to control
Hmm
him. When she used her powers to break him of their control, the control that they had Tabor in, one person had Tabor in, and she was still able to act while he
hmm
was under her control.
Yeah.
They died. So
Yeah. It didn't. They didn't explain the witch's
they
powers
they
really at
didn't
all.
explain their powers really well. There was a part in the movie, in the show, where their mother turns into mystic dust,
Yeah.
and Soul is able to stab her in that form. And again, it just brought more questions.
Yeah.
And again, we see what we want to do a season two. We got that, but at this
I don't think they
point,
should.
at
I
this
don't think they
point,
should.
I want a season two just because I want it to get better. But
I just want to see Darth Plagueis. That would be my only reason.
Everything
But I don't want him to
from
see it. I don't want to see him in this. I don't want to see him
everything
in
from
this.
season one should have been resolved. Honestly, the only
Yeah.
thing that wasn't actually no, everything from season one should have been resolved because we see at the end of it they want to use May to capture. Now they want to use May to capture Osha and the bald chick's former apprentice. And again, no one knew who he was, and I'm guessing we don't know time frame, so we don't know how long ago he left the Jedi Order,
Hmm.
and again, it's not explained why he left. Which again, I'm guessing that would be a season two thing. Explains why he left, when he left, what was going on. But again, we still don't understand everything from season one. We don't understand why they were created as one person was changed created to two people, how they were created. Again, we know life can be created, but again, how are we doing this? How did you do this? How did you figure out how to do this? And what are the witches' powers? Why were the Jedi so afraid of them?
I didn't see a reason, honestly. Like, and given how much time you spent with them, like, for you spent an entire episode with this coven,
Hmm.
really two, if you want to count the one that was told from the Jedi's perspective. So the fact that their powers weren't really explained in any capacity, like we just watched what they were able to do, and we were just supposed to just figure it out from there. Like their powers weren't really like fleshed out in any
Yeah,
capacity was a little surprising, um, especially when you like compare their powers to what Osha and May can and can't do. Or at least what we didn't see them do. I'll say that it doesn't really add up in my
yeah,
opinion.
because they
But
had
one
typical dark side, light side
They just
powers,
had typical force
where
powers, and then we see these witches just whip out moves I ain't seen in Star Wars before. I'm like, hold on,
because they
like
had they had
at least not in live action.
they had their bow and arrows were not physical.
Hmm.
They were like created through the dark side. But
Yeah,
again, I do want to say, did you get a chance to watch the Tales of the Dark Side, Tales of the Sith?
I have not. No, I've not seen that yet.
So I do want to mention in that there's an episode where the witches of Dathomir. I don't think it's Dathomir though. It's another sect of witches on there where
Okay.
they do have different powers and such like that.
Okay. Well, I
But
know the. Well, I only my knowledge of Dathomir is limited to
well, it wasn't. I
the
don't.
Jedi Fallen Order
Yeah, I
games.
don't think it
So
was
like,
Dathomir though.
okay, okay, it
So
was a
that's what I'm
different
saying.
group
But
of
it was
witches.
like
Okay,
those witches. So they had
okay.
they had those. But again,
They
the
like could
point is
teleport and do all the stuff that
the,
those
the
witches can
point
do.
is
Okay.
they don't explain what their powers were because I all of the witches have different powers. You
Yeah.
know, so that was like I said. I mean, again, I really wanted to like this show.
I did
I
too.
really wanted to
I
like it.
did. And honestly, like I think looking back on what the sentiments I had were for because the first when I initially watched the first three episodes of this show, I was like, you know what? This isn't really this isn't giving me much, but I want
Hmm.
to give this show a chance. And I was seeing how much the backlash was initially for reasons that were just not credible, honestly.
Yeah,
Like we know why people were backlashing and hating on this show before they even saw an episode.
woman, black,
Yeah, I was like, why are these
not
women
the
and Negroes in
Skywalkers.
my Star Wars? Right. So like I was like, okay, I want to give this show a chance just because of how much backlash it's unnecessarily getting.
Hmm.
But when I watched the first two, especially the third episode, I was like, okay, this isn't giving me much, but I don't think it's as terrible as the reviews are making it out to be. I need to see the rest of the show. I need to see where they take this story before I make my
Right.
decision. You know what I'm saying? Like this show, I remember saying this. I was like, this show is kind of at a crossroads based on the first three episodes. This can either go great or this can crash and burn. Unfortunately, it took the other route and it crashed and burned, in my opinion. I didn't see anything story wise or plot wise that drew me into this show and kept me connected. There were things that drew me in for a moment, like, oh, okay, let's see how powerful May can become. Oh, okay,
Yeah.
well, she's defecting now before we even really get to see her full power. She doesn't want to work for her master anymore. Okay, well, let's see what Kamir can do. Oh, okay, well, he's just here to train Osha. Oh, and now Darth Plagueis is here, so now he's not even the most interesting Sith in the show anymore. Like he was the most interesting character, but if you're a Star Wars nerd or you understand who Darth Plagueis is, as soon as I saw Darth Plagueis, I was like, well, I'm actually more interested in what he's doing
So
than anything else that's going on in the show right
so
now. So now
I,
that's
I
what I'm focused
I'm gonna
on.
stop you on that point right there. I'm gonna stop you on that point. that is that part, just the Chimera part, him not being the
Hmm.
most interesting person, that is preference at that point.
Yeah.
Because it's too much we don't know about him for him not to be the most interesting person.
He is based on the characters we spend time with.
Yeah, you're
Like the
just
characters we spend time with and know he is by far
you're
the most
just you're
interesting
just
one.
hype about
I
seeing
just
him. Yeah, that's
I
what
just
that
I was just
is.
I
That's
was like, is that
yeah,
is that who I think
yeah.
it is
That's
peeking out of
that's
that
what that
cave?
is.
I know
Because
that ain't. I was like Big Boy and ATL. I know that ain't who I think it is.
listen, listen, I'm a Star Wars fan, but I'm not as read up on like a lot of most of the comics that I've read are like the Vader comics or maybe
Hmm.
Boba Fett comics. So
Hmm.
it's still during the Skywalker time,
Yeah.
and I had no idea who it was. I was like, oh, he got some old dude cleaning up for him,
He got
and then
Sidious's master cleaning up for him. He
and,
has
and
Palpatine's
so I'm
master
like,
cleaning
I'm
up for
looking, I'm
him.
like, huh. I'm like, let me go look this because why?
Yeah.
Because I think he had the the little Sith color eyes,
Hmm.
if I recall. So I'm like, let me
Yep.
figure out who this was. I'm like, okay, that make a little bit of sense. But then, like you
Yeah.
said, I'm like, that's Sidious guy. So who is this?
Yeah.
So
They do have to explain if
I
Kamir
need
is his like apprentice. I feel like that needs to be explained
because
because
again, maybe and
I
that's
don't
what I'm
know if he
saying,
had any other apprentices outside of Palpatine. I don't
because
know, but
maybe
I always
he
thought
is
it was
the
just
acolyte.
Palpatine.
And that's
Maybe.
what, because again, Darth Maul tried to do the same thing where Darth Maul was not, he was a Sith acolyte. He tried to get somebody else. He tried to get his brother. He tried to get it wasn't Asajj. I forgot who else he tried to get. But that's a reoccurring, that's what the Sith do. The
Yeah.
strongest Sith gets an apprentice, and the weaker Sith tries to get a acolyte or their
Hmm.
own so they can become an apprentice so they can take over their master with this
Hmm.
rule two thing. So it's we again we if the show, if they really decided that he was not one of the Sith and he's just a Sith acolyte, I would understand the show being about him. But again, it just, I keep coming back to, why was this story centered around OSHA?
Yeah, it was. I think one of the to me, especially considering where the show went, because at first I remember I remember thinking in the first three episodes when I was watching them, I was like, the Jedi kind of feel like a joke. Like I'm not taking the Jedi seriously these first three episodes.
Especially when she killed Trinity that fast.
Yeah, and not even just that, just the way they were written and the dialogue they had. I was like, they feel like it feels like I'm watching a Guardians of the Galaxy scene. It doesn't feel like I'm watching a high order Jedi Council. It's just not what it feels like I'm watching right now. And then, of course, their strength level, they're getting beat by May, who, as we learned throughout the show, should not have been able to beat them that easily. But then on top of that, like as the show progressed, I started to take the Jedi a little more seriously as the show progressed because you started to see like, okay, it's starting to look like they did something they wasn't supposed to do on that
Mm-hmm.
Witch Coven planet, and I'm trying to figure out what that is. Once you kind of get the full picture of who the Jedi are in this show, I feel like that clicked to me on how this show could have been better. Because if you're presenting this idea that the Jedi are the villains of this show, I'm down with that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like I can get down with that, especially if you're making it like a rogue group of Jedi, right? Like not like the whole order is corrupt, but like this rogue group of Jedi did something they weren't supposed to do.
And let me butt in
Okay,
real
then.
quick, real quick.
Yeah.
And if the show is centered around, if it's, that makes sense, making the Jedi the bad guys of the show, if we are seeing it from the other side's perspective.
That's literally what I was about to get at. I was like,
All right, I'm
literally,
sorry. I'm sorry. I'm
no, but
sorry.
you're right though. You're right
I'm
100% though.
sorry.
Like, I feel like we should have the show to your point though. That because I wanted to expound on your point of like, why was this show centered around OSHA?
Mm-hmm.
Whether it was centered around OSHA or May, whoever you centered the show around, like the show is called The Acolyte.
Yeah.
Whoever the Acolyte is, like that should be the main character of the show, and that's who we should be following
Mm-hmm.
like throughout the show. That person should be the Acolyte, and we should see this show from the Sith's perspective, from start to finish,
Yeah.
based on the story they told. Now, if they want to tell a different story and do things differently, that's fine. But based on the story they gave us, I feel like this show could have reached its potential a little more. A with better writing, like that's the foundation. nothing was going to matter if the writing for the show was what it was. I don't care where else you took the story. The writing was bad. So that is like the foundation of why this show
You know who
failed.
did that really well?
Who?
By telling the story from someone's perspective. And again, because people have been shitting on Marvel as well as far as storytelling. And again, I
Mm-hmm.
think it's just everybody wants magnificent things now. They don't.
Yeah.
If something's just okay, it's trash to them. Okay,
Yeah, I
but
don't think that's the case here though.
it's
This is
no,
actually
no,
the
no.
case.
I'm only saying that to say what I'm about to
Okay,
say.
okay, okay.
uh, Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Very quality show.
The entire show, it's called The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. The last episode, he becomes Captain America, and it closes off Captain America and the Winter Soldier.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying that to your point of telling it from their perspective. The entire movie or the show was told from Sam Wilson as the Falcon.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it's named the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. When he becomes Captain America, it changes.
Mm-hmm.
The title changes to Captain America and the Winter Soldier. Again, running back to maybe we should have seen that sign that OSHA was going to end up being an acolyte.
I kind
Maybe
of
that's
figured
our
it out
fault.
as soon as she went to the planet with Kamir. I was like, all right, she's
Yeah,
going to end up
yeah,
becoming like that became apparent. But my problem with that is you initially set May up as she's supposed to be the acolyte, right? So
hmm
I'm thinking this is the character we're following. But even in that moment, we're starting off with OSHA and we're spending
yeah.
almost more time with OSHA and the Jedi
And
than
it's
we
not an almost;
are.
it's definitely.
Yeah, like we're spending more time in a show that's supposed to be about the Sith, and where the
hmm
Sith are supposed to be the focal point. The majority of the show, we were following the Jedi in a show that's supposed to be about the Sith.
Yeah,
So it like from start to finish, you weren't really centering the show around the acolyte. Sure, the acolyte was a big part of the show, and it was a concept you brought up a lot. But the person who was the acolyte who didn't become the acolyte until the last episode. You didn't center the show around them in a way that showed them actually being,
yeah.
a Sith apprentice or a Sith acolyte. We didn't see that until the last episode. I'm not, and I feel like they tried to cop it out with, okay, well, May and Osha are the same person, so the whole
Yeah,
time you were following May, whatever, right? But they didn't operate as the same person. Like I said, they didn't share memories. Nothing about them made it seem like they were linked at all. They just operated as twins. They were two
yeah.
separate people, separate
Because
personalities, separate interests.
and
Like,
even
you know what I'm saying? It just
Anakin,
didn't work.
even Anakin was able to tap into his mother's pain,
Hmm.
Padme's pain. When you go back and watch the Clone Wars, he's able to tap in to Ahsoka's pain, Obi-Wan's
Yeah.
pain, to people that he care about's pain to sense them. So when May is going through all this trauma and Osha knows
Doesn't even
nothing
know she's
about it,
alive.
yeah,
Didn't even know she was
I
alive.
think
Like,
I think
what?
after
They're the
she
same
kills
person?
Trinity, and I'm about to learn her name so I can stop calling her Trinity.
I'm gonna still call her Trinity. That's
after,
Trinity to me. I'm gonna still
after
call her Trinity.
after they figure out after she kills her, she wakes up kind of and we know
Yeah.
she has a bad dream,
A
but
bad dream.
it
Yeah.
doesn't say who it is. And
Hmm.
to your point, where there's no breadcrumbs to let us know that she's going to be the acolyte, there is nothing throughout the show that happens that shows hints of the dark side in Osha. Nothing
Not until the end, really.
until the end, until she chokes Soul out.
Yeah.
Nothing
You didn't
happens.
set that up well.
It
That
was
was not set up well at all.
it wasn't her saying being angry. Even when she had the chance to stop May, she didn't because she didn't want to hurt her, or I don't know what
Hmm.
her reason was. She didn't, but she had a stun gun. She didn't have a shooty blaster. She had it on. It was set on stun. But
Hmm.
either way, she just there were no breadcrumbs anywhere. She should have wanted to kill May because May at this time she thought May killed her covenant.
Hmm.
So it just like I said, bad writing all around.
Yeah, I think there's a lot that I hope Disney learns from the reception this show has gotten. Like, yes, this show got a lot of unnecessary hate simply because the cast is diverse.
hmm
Okay, we got that right. But you get that out the way for a second. You objectively wrote a bad show. Like you, I know I throw the word objectively loosely because all film and show is subjective, right? But like this show has a 4 out of 10 on IMDb for a reason, and I don't know exactly what the Rotten Tomatoes
Still
score
has a
is off the
4 out
top
of
of my
10.
head.
Yes, it does.
You know what I'm saying? So like this show is universally hated, even by people who weren't coming into this show to hate it. Like reasonable people who wanted to like this show, who wanted to give this show a chance, are walking out with the same sentiment of this was not quality Star Wars. And I'm not even I don't even want to go too deep into because I've seen people on YouTube and other reviewers, star like true Star Wars nerds,
Yeah.
like deeper than me, like true Star Wars nerds picking at like
Talking about the
the
books and
yeah, like the story inaccuracies and all that. Like I don't even want to get to that. Like just from a filmmaking standpoint, like the writing, the acting, the dialogue, like the things that fundamentally make up a TV show or a film were not done well in this.
did you stay
And
for the
then
end credit?
I didn't. What was in the end
I
credits?
think they showed Yoda or some shit.
Oh yes, okay, I did see that.
They
The back
showed,
of Yoda's head. Yeah.
yeah, which
See,
again,
like that, but like that. What was that? Because
yeah,
I didn't.
it's
I by that point I didn't care about anything at that point. Like okay, I sat through this bad show, and you think you're gonna redeem it by showing me the back of Yoda's head?
and there's a whole thing about Kieran Mundy, because he's in the show, and
Mm,
no, I guess his people only live to like the age of 70 before, so and this messed it up. And I was
mm.
like, maybe it's just somebody that looks like him. And then they say his name. you're like,
Yeah, I was like,
you're
nope,
like,
that's Yoda for
I'm
sure.
like, hopefully it's his dad, because
Hopefully it's his pops.
yeah, it's somebody else. Because again, I hate the Skywalker family. They single handedly ruined the galaxy twice, and
Twice.
they did it twice.
Yeah, yeah.
Anakin and then Ben,
Hmm.
and Luke didn't help. He helped make Ben. So like their entire family fucking sucks, and we finally get away from them, and you bring them back.
Or bring a connection to them
Yeah, you
back. I'll
bring that,
say. I think
and not even
Star
just a
Wars.
connection, a close
Yeah,
connection.
a close connection. I think Star Wars, and this is a thing that we've obviously discussed before when it comes to Star Wars, especially under Disney's ownership. There's this strong need to keep connecting breadcrumbs of
Hmm.
nostalgia to what came before, right?
Yeah,
And it's like y'all are missing the point. If you can tell good stories without those people,
new stories.
new stories without bringing up who was there before. I understand you first when Star Wars was first acquired by Disney. I understand Disney's desire or want to bring back some of the older characters. So that all right, we want to establish Star Wars under us. We want to do it with a little bit of what came before. We don't just want to start off with a completely clean slate. Fine. But when you did that, you tried that with the sequel trilogy, and it didn't work. Like in any capacity, in a vacuum, I like the Force Awakens. In a
Hmm.
vacuum, the Last Jedi is decent. But when you look at them holistically as a trilogy, that is not a well told story. That is not you did not think
Not
that
as a
story
whole.
out as a whole. No, that story does not work as a whole. When you put all three films together, that story falls apart, and it was not well thought out. And you could tell just based on Kathleen Kennedy's leadership, and I think the way she tried to just allow the director to just do whatever with no oversight, or changing plans last minute. I'm not really sure what went into why that fell apart, but you could see it watching the films. There wasn't a plan here. They didn't think out, all right, this plot point is going to lead to this, which is going to lead to this, which is going to lead to this, which is going to lead to this. They were just being reactionary and just doing
Or
stuff.
even like you said, like they are completely retconning things that happened previously. And
Yeah.
I want to say that to say, I love, one of the things that really got me into loving Star Wars was the TV show The Clone Wars,
Hmm.
which the first season was critically bad. People hated it. Second season came back, and the only reason people hated it, the art style was kind of wonky,
Hmm.
storytelling was kind of everywhere. When it came back, art style was better. The storytelling became more clear and precise, and it was solid. And that if you are going to go back, give us that. And they're not messing with the canon like that. But
Hmm.
all the properties that we're getting now, like you said, it's messing up the timeline because it didn't really. with the Acolyte, it really didn't tell us how long before. I don't believe. Um,
I think there is a set time period this
yeah,
happens before in the
but I
past, but
don't
I
think
don't
it
remember how
tells
much it
us.
was.
But it's something that you would have had to figure out and find out
Hmm.
on your own.
Yeah.
But they mess it up by bringing Yoda in, bringing Key and Monday in. Um, was it Obi-Wan? They mess it up again because
Why is Leia in the show at all?
Leia's in. Why is she in the show? Why
Why
did
is
she
Leia in
has
the show at
whole
all?
ass conversations with him? She knows who he is. So when she goes, Obi-Wan, please help us. You're our only help. You served with my father in the Clone Wars. Like, yo,
She spoke about, yeah,
you
and
know who the
well, she
fuck
speaks
he
about him
is.
like she hasn't met him
Like,
before,
bro,
and it's
you
like,
saved
yeah,
my life. You
yeah,
know?
like,
So they're fucking up they fucking that up. And again, I think that's why and we talked about Boba Fett, why Boba Fett was kind of
not good.
not good. And it's a lot of
The
things. I
best
think
episodes don't have Boba Fett in it. Like, what are we talking
the
about?
best episodes had the Mandalorian in it.
Yeah,
And which would have been fine if you would have just called it the Mandalorian and then had a few episodes focusing on Boba. But they
that's
tried to capture that the the hype from the
yeah.
Mandalorian.
It like
And
literally the show stopped like midway through and became like the Mandalorian
yeah.
season 2.5. Like it just stopped being a Boba Fett show like midway through, and there's like two episodes of us focusing on the Mandalorian.
But even in those shows, which is during the time of the movies, the
Hmm.
sequel movies. Um but they don't go into detail about the Jedi, the Skywalkers, and everything, because again, they're focusing on the backstory. Because when Luke Skywalker was doing everything he was doing in 4 through 6, there was still an entire universe struggling, and that's what the Mandalorian focuses on. They or
Hmm.
now 7 through or between 6 and 7. There's an
Yeah.
entire universe struggling, trying to get some type of order back into their lives after the Empire is destroyed, and they focus on that, and they don't grab onto, oh well, people like this. Let's throw a touch of it in there. The only thing they did with that was add Ahsoka and Luke, which was kind of
It was a lot, but I liked the fact that I liked the Ahsoka show, so I was fine with them using that
well,
to
no, no,
kind
I'm
of be
talking
like a
about
bridge
the
point.
the
But
Mandalorian
but yeah,
show.
no, I'm saying
Yeah,
like introducing her. I was fine with them introducing her, and I was okay with them introducing Luke based on how they did it. He wasn't like a focal point in the
yeah,
show, but it was definitely like kind of like you said, them calling back to like it's playing the hits,
and
play what works.
this is my reason with that. In Ahsoka, they don't really mention Luke, and
I don't remember them bringing him up that much at all, really.
exactly, and we at this point we know she has a relationship with Luke because
Hmm.
she takes Grogu to him to
Hmm.
train. We know there's a relationship, but again, I don't even need to see Luke. Again, I hate that family. I don't want to see Luke. But how did they meet each other? You know,
It makes sense that they would have a relationship, though.
it no, it makes sense. But
Yeah,
how? When did this happen? Because again,
yeah.
between episode 3 and episode 6, we're operating as if it's only Luke and now Obi-Wan, Yoda, Luke as the only Jedi, or Obi-Wan and Yoda, then Luke.
Hmm.
They're the only
Hmm.
Jedi. Movie ends. And then, through the other shows and whatnot, the Clone
We learned
Wars, and
there's
it,
other
we
Jedi
learned
out
there's
there.
other
Yeah.
Jedi from the games. We know
Hmm.
there's other Jedi from Ahsoka still being alive. We know there's other Jedi. So, kind of, it's so many more options than just Luke.
Hmm.
And that's what I'm getting at. They wanted
Yeah.
to, you got to
They
go,
wanted it to be him.
you
Yeah.
had to go do so much fucking CGI to get him to look like that. you know,
Well, you
other
couldn't
than
just
you
introduce a new
you
character.
could have introduced a new character. And again, they did the same thing with the movies. He's the only one building up the. I'm about to stop because I'm about to go on a rant about those movies and about how dumb Luke was about how he was trying to build the Jedi Order. So I'm done. I'm done. The last thing I'm gonna say is the show the first The first 4 or 5 episodes were terrible. Um, and I don't want it to be. There were some things in those episodes that were good, that had me thinking like, okay, I'm gonna go back and watch the next one, but they were bad. They were
Yeah.
objectively bad. The
They were
last
like,
three
it's
were
like just
good.
bland. Like
Yeah,
I think the first 3 episodes were like, the way I felt about the first 3 episodes of the Acolyte is like, it's all right. It's very mid. It's not a lot here. Like it's just, I don't know
it's
whether this is good or bad
it's
yet.
like a
It's just
badly it's
there.
like a badly piece of seasoned meat. You're at a restaurant and you're
You're
eating
like,
it, and
it's
you're
like,
like,
okay, it's there. Like,
okay, this. Let me get another piece.
let me see where you go with this. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? That's kind of how I felt about the beginning of the Acolyte. It's
Yeah,
like, all right, is this as terrible as everyone's making it out to
yeah,
be? No, because I feel like this show's getting unnecessary
yeah,
backlash. But if this show doesn't like progress from what I just watched, I'm gonna get on the that I hate this show bandwagon along with the rest of the other people who are hating on the
yeah.
show unnecessarily. And as the show progressed, it never got better. The writing never improved. The characters never became more compelling. As a matter of fact, you took a compelling character and made her uninteresting.
Mm-hmm.
And then, Kamir was interesting. Like his fight scenes were cool. His, relationship he was starting to build with Osha, like he was an interesting character, but he was an interesting character operating in a badly written show.
Yeah,
And him alone being an interesting character wasn't
yeah,
going to
not help.
save the show from being badly written. I think that there's so much, like I said, in this show that could have been. Like, there's a lot of potential here. There was so much potential within this show on what it could have been and what it could have progressed to, and ultimately what I feel like it could have launched. Imagine what a well written show about the Sith could have done to launch other stories within the Star Wars world. There's a lot you could have done. This show could have been a springboard, similar to what The Mandalorian was to set up Ahsoka. This show could have been a springboard for you to tell so many other different stories. And instead, because you just were not interested in writing a good show for whatever reason, you've now taken a very, what I thought could have been very interesting group of new characters that we aren't familiar with, and instead just gave us very bland, very one note, and very badly written characters
And
that
they also killed
I have
himself.
no interest of seeing after this, honestly.
Yeah,
Like outside of Darth Plagueis, who had no dialogue, like that's the only character I actually care about seeing beyond this show.
this
Like the
guy,
only character
this
that's in the show
guy.
that I like. Honestly,
you're
that dude
you're
had no
you're just
dialogue.
fanboying over here
I am
again.
fanboying, but I'm saying like at
Kamir,
least that's an
Kamir
interest. That's
is
a story that like I'm
that's who
interested in seeing beyond this.
I
Outside of
would
that, I
love
don't
to see
care.
Kamir's story, because again, and again,
I
this
don't
is
because he's
this.
associated with this now, and that means if I got to tell his story, I got to see some of the other characters from this show again. I
So
don't want to do that.
this is my thing with Kamir's story right now. Everybody's everybody was a fucking Jedi. Everybody that's a Sith was a Jedi
At one point,
at one
is
point.
what you're saying. Okay.
Because I think even Asajj Ventress might have been, they may have talked to her and it didn't flesh out, but Darth Maul might have been the only one that wasn't, and everybody else that Sith that we have come in contact with was a Jedi at some point. Even when you look at the game, you know,
Yeah, I was gonna say there's a lot of
they were
former Jedi
they
Sith
were
in the
former
games.
Jedi's. There's not anyone that was just found
Mm-hmm.
and they're like, oh shit, this motherfucker's strong. Because
Yeah,
again, we know that the Sith were their own thing at a certain point. They weren't, yeah, we're gonna be bad. They were just
yeah.
bad. You know,
And then they destroyed each other looking for power,
Yeah,
hence the
and
rule of two. Yeah.
that just was. They weren't
And
like.
that's another thing. Like, there's so much Sith lore in Star Wars that was not touched on a show that's supposed to be
I'm
about them.
I'm not gonna lie though. Like, I really would like. I don't want. I wish they would stop forcing the rule of two.
It's a deep rooted Star Wars
It's
thing at
deep.
this
It's
point.
deep rooted, but
Yeah,
it didn't start like that. And I think at this point, and especially what they're doing, we need to start seeing more Sith.
well,
And
give us an Old Republic movie. Like I've been asking for
even if you
years.
go get rid of this stuff, these people,
Hmm.
Skywalkers, give us more Sith. And
Yeah,
hey, that's because again, we know that rule of two is just something that certain Sith believe in, though.
hmm,
And all of them don't even believe in it. So give us that. And then, I do want to say that those last 3 episodes were better. They were better. There were parts of it that were extraordinary. the fight scene. But again,
The
the
fight
talking
scenes
during
were amazing.
the talking
The
in the
fight scenes
fighting
were
scenes, you're
amazing.
like, what the
Yeah.
fuck are y'all talking about? Like the
Yeah.
dialogue was terrible. Let's get
Yeah.
on. Like, get the
Yeah.
fuck on, dude. Y'all feel it.
Yeah.
And it didn't help. It didn't save the show. You have some shows where you're like, oh, that was bad. That was bad. That started bad. And he's
Hmm.
like, okay, now I see what they were doing. When you looked I want to say the Watchmen TV show, it started slow, but it started as a fucking banger.
It didn't even.
Ah,
I mean,
it was a fucking
if you remember what
banger
the
all the
opening
way
scene was,
through.
it didn't start
Yeah,
slow.
God damn it.
From the
I'm
opening scene of
I
that show, you was
I
like, "Oh, this is what we doing."
I thought
Okay.
about it. I'm like, no, that
Yeah.
was a fucking banger. I'm trying to
Yeah.
think of show that Game of Thrones. Game of
Game of Thrones did
Thrones
start slow.
starts slow as fuck, and I watched Game of Thrones. Watched season 1 of Game of Thrones
It starts slow. It's
four
a slow
times
start.
before I made it all the way through to 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 finish season 2.
Hmm.
Then and
Hmm.
that's how that just didn't happen. You finish this season and you're like honestly, like Farhan said, I'm going to watch it. I don't care how bad it is. I'm going to watch it because I like Star Wars. I like Marvel. I'm going to watch their terrible properties. I just am.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I don't want to though. I don't want to. I don't want to watch season 2. The only reason I want to watch season 2 is because I'm hoping that they do put more of a focus on following the Acolyte now.
An
They
actual Sith story and
Yeah,
a show that's supposed to be about them.
follow OSHA, follow May. Get rid of fucking OSHA. Kill her if we have to. Why did y'all decide, hey, when we used her sister to find her, that didn't work out well. Let's
Yeah.
use her to find her sister. What? That it makes no fucking sense. But again, it does speak to the hubris of the Jedi, which
Yeah.
she mentioned. Which I hated that she said that because we know what happens to the Jedi,
Yeah.
and it felt like it felt lazy, and that's
Like
that.
they were trying to calculate it. Like, hey, y'all know what's coming with this group.
So, like you said, that was that kind of lazy writing that they added to, like, oh, that's going to be the Jedi's downfall is your hubris and this and this. And
Yeah, but it's like if you just watched the prequels, you know that. You know what I'm saying? I don't
right,
need that
you
explained to
you
me
know what
again.
happened. So it's
Yeah.
really like, okay, she could have had a banger of a line there. Like, this will
Hmm.
destroy you in particular. This is
Yeah.
your hubris will destroy
Destroy
you
you.
because it did. It killed him. The person that he was trying to save killed
Hmm.
him.
Hmm.
But it, like I said, that's my final thoughts, man. Like the last 3 episodes did not save it enough to where this season is good to me. Um, I'm gonna keep the 4 out of 10 that IMDb has for it. I'm gonna
I'm gonna
keep
give
it.
it. Yeah, I'm
Even
gonna give it a
that,
3.
like I said, even I really the last episode kind of gives me hope, but when they added the thing about May, it it just killed it for me.
Yeah,
And I was hoping that I think that she didn't fight her apprentice when she got there, did she?
you speaking about the
The
green
ball,
ball headed,
yeah, she
the
didn't
green ball
fight
headed Jedi?
Kamir, did she? She just
I
seen
don't
him, and I
recall.
don't even think she's
I don't
seen
think they
him.
had a fight scene. No, they didn't have a fight scene. But she did. They did want to show her with the slave whip lightsaber.
That was fire. That was
That was.
fire.
I was like, I didn't know that was a thing. Now
That was
Jedi's
fire.
have whips as lightsabers. Now that's
That
new.
that was fucking fire.
Yeah, that was now. Given that, I kind of wanted to see a fight scene with that to
Yeah.
see like just practically in battle how does that work.
Well, I only
But
say that to say, there's so again, he's the most interesting person. Where, like you said, May was the most interesting person, and that was only because we didn't know shit.
yeah,
We didn't know
yeah,
anything, and as
yeah.
we learn more, like I said,
She became less interesting.
even her decision to leave him
Hmm.
was kind of like,
It was out of nowhere. It didn't make
what?
sense.
Yeah, it wasn't. It was so like again, and I get her. Even if she would have decided, I'm gonna do my own thing. I don't need a
Hmm.
master. I don't like the way you're trying to teach me. You talking about I
Yeah,
gotta kill somebody without a weapon. I don't like that shit. I'm gonna go do my
yeah.
own
Like
bad
there's a
guy.
way you could have had her defect without. Oh, no, I'm not rocking with this no more. I'm up. Like what? We just
Yeah,
watched 4 to 5 episodes of you being committed, and now you're just
committed.
done. I'm just so confused. Like, what are you talking about? It just
So
there's so much in the show that just writing wise doesn't make sense, and it's almost like you're insulting the audience's intelligence by expecting me to go along with this and not question it.
because as
Um,
we talk, I'm thinking about more shit that's like
yeah,
just like
that
what
just doesn't
what.
add up.
Yeah.
I You gave it a 4 out of 10. I'm gonna settle in at about a 3.5.
3.5.
I I I don't want to get. I can't go higher than that because I to me there's one thing to make a bad show or something you tried to do that doesn't work. There's another when audience members are able to identify the clear areas in which this show could have been better, and the people who made the show couldn't.
And
That to me is a very huge red flag on the
the
direction of Star
one
Wars
thing
right
I
now.
don't want to take away from them is most of the acting in the show was really well,
But the
but they were
cast isn't bad.
yeah they were just operating. I do want to because
It's
that's
not a
what
bad
you know.
cast.
A lot of times when people talk about like the movie was bad, but this person was good, the
Hmm.
cast as a whole did a great job. They just
Yeah,
had
Amanda. If you've
very
seen Amanda
shitty material.
Steinberg, Amanda Steinberg, the woman who plays
May
Ocean
Ocean,
May. If you've seen Amanda Steinberg in anything else outside of this, you know how good of an actress she
yeah.
is. So that's why it's like when I see her in this show, it's like I know that the reason her performance feels bland is not due to her ability to act because I've seen her give great performances before. This show is just badly written, and I mean I'm going to butch the name of the actor who plays Soul, so I'm not even
So
going to attempt it.
mhm.
But he was in Squid Games. If you've seen Squid Games, you know what he can do in front of a camera. You don't have to question his acting ability either.
I'm gonna be honest. He's the only actor I really didn't think gave his all. But
He probably looked at the
but
script and was like, I don't have to.
well, I do want to say English is not his first language.
He did have to learn English
So
for this role, so that is
so
also
so
true.
that's the only thing. That's the
Yeah.
only thing. And again, so I don't want to. They as a whole, they did well. Everybody played a part. When you look at the entire role that Carrie Ann Moss played, was fucking excellent. The entire
Like
every scene
the
that she
acting
was
in
in
this isn't bad because the actors are bad. The acting in this is bland and doesn't
because of the
hit
writing.
because the writing's bad and there's not much these actors can do with the material they're
Yeah,
given.
you can only do so much.
Yeah. Which it's frustrating because it's good to see Star Wars finally accept the fact that like, hey, this is a galaxy that's made up in the middle of nowhere. We can have a more diverse cast within that. So I'm glad they
We can
finally,
go to other planets besides
you know what
fucking
I'm saying?
Tatooine.
You know what I'm saying? Like it's good to see Star Wars finally do what I've been begging them to do and open up the universe and introduce new characters, but you still have to tell a good story within
Yeah,
that. You can't just say, "Oh, here goes your new characters," and then not put together a cohesive story that makes sense and has compelling
and
characters and has a plot that hooks the audience in. Like you can't forget about the fundamentals that make a good show.
I know I said I was done, but this is the last thing I'm gonna say about it.
Hmm.
They have so much source material that they can pull from. There's hundreds of comics from before they went under came under Marvel. There's hundreds of books before they were or I'm sorry, owned by Disney, well no, Marvel first because they were owned by Marvel before Disney. So there's hundreds of backstory about Sith in particular,
That you could have
and
pulled from.
it's so much they could have pulled from. And again, I don't like when they do one for one comparisons from comics to movies. So I love when there's a new story,
Yeah,
but you had somewhere you can start from, and they kind
yeah,
of started from, like I said, the comics and those books. They touch on places that have nothing to do with the Skywalkers, and we're right back in that circle. They could have
yeah.
went 100 more years in the past, and it still would have been the height of the Jedi.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that there's a lot to be desired, left to be desired after watching this show. It's very disappointing to see kind of the state of Star Wars right now, and it's even more concerning because unlike Marvel and the MCU, there weren't any glory days under Disney with this property. You know what I'm saying? At least under specifically under Disney, where I'm not considering or counting any Star Wars property prior to Disney buying them because I got to stick with who's operating the show now.
The Clone Wars. I think they
I
the
think the
last
Clone Wars predates Disney.
the last season of the Clone Wars.
Well, last I'm saying
But
like the Clone Wars show predates Disney.
as
Like
a
Clone
whole, it
Wars was a
does. But
show
the last
before
season of
Disney bought
the
Star Wars.
last season of the Clone Wars, though, they gave us
Yeah,
our end.
I mean,
Well,
yeah,
no, you can't
there
say
are
that. No, you can't say that because
there have been some good
you
Star
still
Wars
got the
properties under
Mandalorian.
Disney. You have the
So yeah,
Mandalorian, you have
so
Ahsoka, and
Ahsoka.
as far as the movies go, Rogue One is a good movie.
I like Rogue
I
One, but
didn't I didn't mention Rogue One. Rogue One is a good movie. So there's
again,
Disney
we
has given us
know
some
what
good.
the
Yeah,
fuck
we
happens.
already knew that story.
And
You're right.
then
Yeah,
they gave us fucking Andor. So you gave us a story that we know within a story that we know
yeah,
within a story that we know. We know
and
Andor dies. Why the fuck are we
yeah.
on season 2 of this motherfucker?
Yeah, I wasn't really excited when they announced the Andor show, but after I watched, I
It
still
was
haven't
good.
finished
I
it.
liked it.
I haven't finished it yet. I know I'm late, y'all. Don't kill me. But the episodes I have watched of Andor were very quality. Like
So
so, there's Disney. I don't want to act like Disney is just giving us complete misses,
yeah,
but they clearly don't really have a clear plan or direction with what they want to do with this property
I do
of
want to
Star Wars
say
as a whole.
what this and again at this point we're not even talking about the fucking show anymore. We're talking about as a
What
whole.
Disney's doing
I
with
do
our
want to
beloved,
I do want to
a very beloved
I'm gonna
property.
say two more things and I promise I'm done after that because we'll go on forever.
Hmm.
The the Jedi Survivor games, Fallen Order.
Fallen Order and Survivor. Yeah.
Again, you have so many things you could have pulled from. Get those writers, have them do
Hmm.
it, turn that shit into a movie. Take Darth Vader out. I'm tired of fucking Darth Vader. But
He is like a cop out that they use constantly.
the thing that to show a strong person. But again,
Yeah.
now that we know that you have the Inquisitors,
You have
yo,
Inquisitors, even just whole other mercenaries. Because I think the dark side users that were in Ahsoka weren't Inquisitors; they were just
mm-hmm,
mercenaries
mm-hmm.
that were hired. So
Well,
like,
I
there's
think
even
they were hiding though because they would have been murdered if they
yeah.
knew we
Well,
were there.
the Balin I think was the head one. He used to be a Jedi, so
Yeah,
he
yeah,
switched over into being a mercenary. But
yeah.
I'm saying like the point is like even outside of Inquisitors, there's
Outside
other
of Darth
Dark
Vader, we
Force
could use.
users
Yeah.
there in the universe that you can pull from.
So, but the thing that Disney is doing well is they are not keeping because Star Wars was a space opera, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and you go to Boba Fett. Boba Fett's a space western.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the Mandalorian, I don't know what it's a space of, but you know, it's
It's
not a
something
west. It's
different
not a western. It's kind of a western. When you think
in
about it,
some parts.
but it's more of a action movie in space. You
Yeah,
know,
action adventure space
yeah. So you
drama.
know,
Yeah.
I do like that Disney is doing that where they're even though they're still around the Skywalker timeline, which
Mm-hmm.
whatever. I at this point I can't get away from it, but
Yeah.
they are bringing other genres in
Yeah.
to it's so you're not just seeing oh it's another Jedi show, and then
Mm-hmm.
when you think you got the story tells of Jedi, tells of the dark side or tells of the Empire. There's another one that they do where I think it's another animated one that just tells a bunch of different stories. I forget what it is, but Disney does that well. But like you said, they have been terrible at putting all this together
Yeah.
and having it be cohesive.
Yeah. I think there is like because even like I said, it's a hard thing to judge right now under Disney because I want to have optimism
Mm-hmm.
for where this is going to go and say that Disney can get it on the right track, but I literally have not seen them do it with this property. Like I said, it's not like the MCU where there were glory days. Like, oh well, look, the MCU is in a rough place right now, but look, y'all, like Phase 1 through 3 exist, so they know how to get it right with Marvel. Disney knows what a good functioning Marvel universe looks like under them. They're just not doing that great right now. I don't have anything really concrete to look back to with Disney owning Star Wars with this, with these new Star Wars properties we're getting. I don't have a glory days to look back to and go, oh, this is when they had it right. Some decent moments here or there,
Yeah.
but there haven't been consistent quality projects with the name Star Wars on it coming from Disney. So I'm kind of left to believe that, all right, this is just what Star Wars is going to be right now. Bad writing cash grabs, because that's what it's been. ever since Disney inherited them, that's what Star Wars has been in it holistically. Like I said, there have been some decent moments and quality projects here or there, but they're few and far between when you look at their holistic body of work of what they've put out.
Yeah.
And it's sad to say as a Star Wars fan that that's the state that we're in right now. Where even if I now want to include the previous Star Wars films and properties, sticking to what we have on screen, we have more bad Star Wars properties than good ones right now.
Yeah.
And
'Cause-
that's
and
not a record we should have
I
with a
do
franchise like
want to
this.
say to that though is one, there's a new Star Wars game coming out at the end of the month, Outlaw.
I am looking forward to Outlaws. I'm looking
But
forward to that.
Star Wars fans, and we talked about this the first episode, second
Yeah.
episode, third episode about how they're just notoriously difficult.
Yeah.
They are
They're hard to please.
notoriously
Star Wars
hard to
fans are hard to
please
please. Yes.
because when the lightsaber battles came out, I seen stuff online. They're like, "Yo, these are fire lightsabers," and it was people like, "Oh, those were trash." And then
Yeah,
they're
right.
like,
Yeah.
"You said the same thing about episode 2, when again up until episode because episode 1 the lightsaber battles weren't that hard, like it,
Mhm.
but that was
Outside of the
the
one with Darth Maul, that one was heat.
that was the hardest when you look at fucking 4, 5, and 6. Those lightsaber battles were
They worked for the time and when those
yeah,
movies
for
were
the time
made.
they were in,
Yeah.
they were very fucking plain. And
Yeah.
then, like I said, you get one, which you like, they fight Darth Maul, and Darth Maul's cool because he got fucking a double sided blade.
Mm-hmm.
Then 2 comes out, and Anakin is just fucking, he's
Yeah,
treating that
like
fucking
doing
lightsaber like
whatever. The
nunchucks.
large lightsaber battle that they had in the
Yeah,
pit. Like there's a lot
yeah. So,
just
but
battling wise, lightsaber
people,
fight wise, that's good in the
but
prequels.
at the time, people hated that shit because it's not
Yeah.
Star Wars. And then now, like you said, now it's like, oh no, they have the best ones, and they did. They had the best lightsaber fights because again, what else? But then
Yeah.
I think we went back because when you look at 7, 8, and 9, those lightsaber fights are not like that.
There's a lot in 789 that's not great though. Like I said, looking at it holistically from start to finish, in a vacuum, like I said, in a vacuum, if I just watched Force Awakens and forgot that there were 2 other movies that came after that, I enjoy that film.
Wait, what was the last one? That's
Rise of Skywalker.
in a vacuum. That's still terrible.
No, in a vacuum, that's like that. In a vacuum, that's the worst Star Wars
that's
thing
terrible.
ever put to screen.
Because why
Yeah,
the
in a
fucking city is
vacuum,
back? That's terrible.
Yeah,
Either way,
in a vacuum, this is why the Acolyte will not be I as much as I don't like the Acolyte, it is not the worst Star Wars property or show or movie we've ever gotten. In a vacuum, Rise of Skywalker is the worst Star Wars anything, film or TV show
and why
that we've ever gotten.
You could have picked any name.
Yeah, Rise of Skywalker is the worst of anything that we've got in Star Wars. That was like criminally bad. That was when I knew, like, oh, Disney really doesn't know what they're doing with this.
Because I didn't find the first 2 that bad, to be honest with you.
I didn't either. Like, I know there's a lot of people that don't like The Last Jedi, but I was like, when I watched The Last Jedi, I was like, there's an opportunity here for this third one with what you just did that can make this third one amazing. Like Kylo Ren on a murderous rampage after he just killed his master, and he's like, "Oh no!" So the galaxy thinks I'm a joke. Y'all think y'all can play with me? All right, watch this. That's what I thought the third one was going to be.
He did the absolute worst thing
did the
that
complete
he could have fucking did. Oh, again, this is my problem with them trying to pigeonhole the Jedi.
Yeah,
because we're focusing it on just Luke. But again, we know Ahsoka is around. And from the Ahsoka show, we know Ezra is around. We know Sabine is around.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the end of the Jedi either way.
There's somewhat of an order you could put together. But
it's not a so there's still Jedi, but it's no order. What you can say. So they should, I guess that's too long of a name, the last order. I don't fucking know, but
yeah, it's really sad.
Like that was just
the state of Star Wars right now as someone who
the Rise
really
of
loves
Skywalker
this property. And it's rough. Like I think the Acolyte is like the culmination of how poorly managed Star Wars has been under Disney. This is kind of like the culmination of everything that we've been watching them just miss on, and this is just like taking all the bad things that they've done with Star Wars and trying to put them all in one show.
I
That's what this
blame
felt like.
I'm blaming Kevin Feige though.
Why? Because
For
he don't want to run two different
no,
franchises.
no, no,
Let that man
because
work.
he's no, not no, because he's taking so much just from you know
I'm only reason why I'm
he's
not gonna
taking he's
I'm
taking
gonna
so,
push back on that
he's
only
taking so
because
much and putting so much into Marvel, and
yeah,
then what is it, John Favreau? He was
yep.
doing a lot of writing for the Disney stuff,
The
and
ones written by him are decent because I think he wrote The
he does a lot of the
Mandalorian.
Mandalorian. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'm gonna say this: there are a lot of people that know about the Force that are read up on these stories. The dude that played what was the old Xbox game where you were Darth Vader's apprentice? Was that
Force Unleashed.
the Force Unleashed?
Force
The
Unleashed.
guy
Yeah.
that plays him,
Mm-hmm.
like he knows a shit ton about the Force.
Mm-hmm.
Like learned from like what's George Lucas and shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Freddie Prince Jr. knows a lot about the Force and shit.
Yeah.
You know, bring these people in. You know, the people from fucking that help write Clone Wars, the people that are making these games, the people that they're still putting out Star Wars comic books about fucking Darth Vader. We know what happens. We
Yeah.
know
Like
what
we've
happens.
seen this. We've literally seen this movie before.
Give us other people.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
done.
It.
I
No,
want. I
you're
really
right.
want to be done, but it's so hard because
it
it's so
it's
much
hard
shit that's
because
bad.
yeah, and it's hard because of how big and beloved this franchise is by so many different people that Disney for whatever reason can't consistently get it right with this property. It's getting to like an asinine point at this point with the Acolyte, like I said, being the culmination of everything we've seen with them just constantly miss after miss. Oh, okay, that one was decent. Miss. Oh, okay, that was solid. Miss. And it's just that's just been that's just been like the formula with Star Wars under Disney now at this point. And while I acknowledge and understand Star Wars fans can be difficult, a lot of their criticisms, the unnecessary critiques that the Acolyte got notwithstanding, some of the other criticisms that they've given Disney are very warranted.
They're valid.
They like Disney has earned the rage of Star Wars fans to an extent, um, just based on how they mishandled this property. So while I agree Star Wars fans are difficult to deal with, I can't really push back on what they're saying right now, other than the racism and misogyny that the Acolyte got. Like other than that, I can't push back on anything they're saying because a lot
Yeah,
of the problems they have with Star Wars are valid. These properties have been badly written. There
yeah.
has not been a lot of thought and care put into telling good stories across these films and TV shows. So when I'm, approaching the next Star Wars property, my excitement level is not going to be as high, which is messed up
I
because
can't say
honestly,
that
as
because
excited as I was about the Acolyte, my expectations weren't that high because the previous work you've given me hasn't been that great.
I
So I
was
didn't
I,
come into this expecting something great. I
I
just
was
said, give me
super
something.
excited
s-
for it.
I
Super
wasn't
excited
super
for it.
excited.
And
I was
then
intrigued because I
you
was like, you're giving me
seen
a show about the Sith, but
did
I
you
was,
see the
I
trailer for the Mandalorian and Grogu?
I have not. Did that release?
Yeah, they did. They had the D23 last week sometime.
Oh, you're right. They did do a lot of
Yeah.
announcements recently. I haven't seen any of the. I haven't seen any of that yet.
I had to find it
Like
on
any like
TikTok
new
because
one.
it wasn't.
Okay,
I usually watch
it
all my
wasn't
trailers.
public.
Yeah, I usually
Yeah.
watch all my trailers on IMDb, but
Mm-hmm.
it was like that
Oh,
Daredevil,
so the
all that
trailer
stuff.
leaked then.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay, okay. No,
It might from what it might not even been a full trailer. It might have been like a little teaser,
yeah, teaser.
but
Okay, no, I didn't know that they showed that at D23. That
yeah,
should be
yeah, yeah.
awesome then. I mean, I
So
am looking forward to the Mandalorian and Grogu because, like I said, the Mandalorian is one of the few properties they've gotten right recently. But even within that, like, okay, you're giving us a feature length film with them. What are you going to show us that can get Star Wars back on track after you've had this many
and
misses?
even with that, it's like I mean, because I guess you could have made because it's only been I think every season's only been like 6 or 8 episodes.
I think eight,
Eight.
eight, yeah,
Well, no, because they're 30 minutes. That's 4 hours of. So I'm really interested to see what this story is about
yeah, yeah,
because because I don't think we're getting another season. I think this movie, is supposed to be the end of it. So
Like the culmination of everything, and it's supposed to be essentially like the series finale. Is
yeah,
this
this
film?
supposed to be the series
That's not a
finale.
bad way to do it, honestly.
That's a great way to do it.
Yeah,
To
that's
you
a
know,
I think that's a smart way to do it. You hopefully finally get a good movie that we haven't gotten in a while out of Star Wars, and then B, you're able to tell like a kind of full budgeted. You get a film budget to conclude the story of these two
hmm
characters that the audience does have a connection to.
but again, like
Um,
you said, we haven't had a good movie. So,
yeah, also we
and
haven't had a
again,
good Star Wars
T,
movie in a while, so
TV writing, and movie writing is
are
different. When
different.
you're
They are
writing for a
different. Yeah.
TV show, you have time to flesh
Hmm.
out the story, or you should have time.
Yeah.
Fucking acolyte.
Acolyte.
You should have time to flesh out the story. So that's the only thing I'm worried. I am again. I'm going to watch it. I,
Hmm.
I don't give a shit. I'm going to watch it. But that's the only thing I am worried about. Like you said, they haven't produced any great movies, good movies.
Yeah,
So
it has not been a great track record under Disney, honestly. So yeah, guys, that's our thoughts on the Acolyte and just the general current state of
because we
Star
got
Wars under
more.
Disney. It's I'm really hoping they turn this around at some point. But you guys, let us know your thoughts on this show. How did you feel about it? Where do you think Star Wars goes from here under Disney? What do you think Disney needs to do to get this franchise and this property back on track and back making quality films and TV shows again at some point?
And if you hate the
So
Skywalkers, just throw a middle finger up somewhere. Throw a
yeah,
middle finger up. Fuck
just
the
get it off your
Skywalkers.
chest on how you want to see different characters on screen because we've just gotten so many Star Wars properties at this point. It's very reasonable for us to ask for different characters, well written different characters, might I add. Not don't just give us anything.
Why is Chewbacca still the only Wookiee that we seen? Not we know it's not a lot of them, but why
Hmm.
the fuck? Oh, no, I'm sorry, a lot.
No, we're gonna forget the Acolyte exists. So you're right. Chewbacca is
No,
the
no,
only
no,
one
not
we've
that
ever
one
seen.
from Boba
Okay.
Fett.
Oh, yes, yes,
Yep,
yes. You're
yep,
right.
yep,
There
yep,
was a
yep.
Wookiee in there. Yes, you're right.
I
There was a
take that
Wookiee in
back,
there.
but I take it
I
back.
mean, either way, we need better. We
Yeah,
need better from Star Wars right
because
now
he
than what
he
we've
was not
gotten.
written well.
Like that's the moral of the story here. We need better than what we've been getting. So yes, let us know you guys' thoughts on how you think the Acolyte was, and like I said, the general state of Star Wars right now under Disney. Definitely curious to kind of get a pulse on where Star Wars fans stand right now, because as you can see, we're not very happy with what we're seeing. But yeah, everybody, that was our view of the Acolyte. Please continue to support. Please continue to subscribe, follow, do all that great stuff. Until next time, peace.